The text message glowed on the screen, a sterile blue island in the warm, wood-paneled quiet of my study. Asterisk. We think it's best if you skip the gathering this year, Elara. Your father and I want a calmer vibe for once. Asterisk. Each word was a carefully polished stone, smooth on the surface but weighted to cause maximum damage. My mother's follow-up text arrived before the sting of the first had even faded. Asterisk. Your brother Leo is bringing his new fiancée, Chloe, and we just want to avoid any tension? Asterisk. I stared at the phone, my breath caught somewhere in my chest. 15 years. 15 years of tradition, of a legacy I had built with my own two hands. Unraveled by the cold indifference of a text message. My name is Elara Vance. I am 40 years old. And for the last decade and a half, I have hosted my family's Christmas. Ever since I was 25 and had just sunk every penny I had into this pre-war brownstone in the heart of the city, I had made it my mission to create magic. For 15 years, this house, which I restored board by board, became a sanctuary of holiday splendor. It was 3 days of slow roasting, of gourmet meals infused with saffron and sage. It was rooms draped in velvet ribbons and garlands of fresh, fragrant pine. It was guests who arrived to the scent of beeswax candles and left with bellies full of warmth and hearts full of joy. And now, I wanted a calmer vibe in Leo's soulless one-bedroom apartment on the waterfront. It's the same apartment they once whispered was too bland, too corporate to ever feel like home. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. I tapped out a reply, my fingers moving with a speed born of years of practice in swallowing my own disappointment. Asterisk. Perfect. Enjoy the holidays. Asterisk. The response was instantaneous. A digital slap. Asterisk. Don't be dramatic, Elara. You know how worked up you get. Chloe wants something simple this year. Asterisk. Worked up. That's what they called my passion. That's what they called the meticulous standards that had turned my pastry side hustle into a 6-figure boutique baking and events business. The Gilded Spoon. When I launched my brand, Landing Features and Hearth and Home magazine, they didn't call it ambition. They called it being intense. That was always their word for me. Intense. I set my phone down, the screen going dark. My gaze swept across my living room. The grand 10-foot fir tree stood bare in the corner, waiting. It was only December 1st. But I could already see it, dressed in its glory. The hand-blown glass ornaments from a trip to Prague. The antique mercury glass baubles I'd hunted for in quaint Vermont towns. The delicate hand-painted angel my grandmother had pressed into my hand just before she passed. A sudden, surprising wave washed over me. It wasn't anger, it was freedom. My phone buzzed again. A new text from my mother. "K**, you're not upset, are you? We just thought it's Leo's turn. He's engaged now. And Chloe's family is very proper, proper. As if my 7-course meals and my curated playlists had ever been improper. Leo, my dear brother, who couldn't commit to a sofa, let alone a lease longer than a year. And Chloe, a woman who had once bragged to me at a gallery opening about never having turned on her own oven. And here I was, being called too much, by people who had never once offered to so much as chop a single onion for the feasts. They so readily consumed. A slow smile spread across my face. I opened my banking app, my eyes scanning the healthy balance of the Gilded Spoon's account. Then I opened a blank post on my business's Instagram page. My fingers flew across the keyboard. Asterisk. Exciting news. This year, the Gilded Spoon is honored to host a special Holiday of Wonders dinner for 50 single mothers and their children. Right here in our founder's home. We believe everyone deserves a touch of magic. Asterisk. I hit post. Then I replied to my mother. Asterisk. Not upset at all. I've already made other plans. Asterisk. And I had. These weren't petty, reactive plans. They were plans that had been quietly taking root for weeks. A seed of an idea that their text message had just watered into glorious, defiant life. Real joy I was beginning to understand. doesn't come from forced family photos and lukewarm praise. It comes from pouring your heart into something that matters, for people who see your passion not as a flaw, but as a gift. This year, my home would be fuller than it had ever been. And I wouldn't miss the family who had cast me aside. Not for a single second. The next morning, the winter light was crisp and golden. Made 2 calls. First was to my dear friend Maya, the director of the Northlight Children's Collective, a shelter and outreach program in one of the city's most overlooked neighborhoods. "It's all set," she said, her voice bubbling with an infectious energy that warmed me through the phone. "The RSVPs are in. Elara, the kids are absolutely vibrating with excitement." "Are you really doing all this? More sure than I've ever?" "Ben," I replied, a deep settled warmth rising in my chest. The second call was to my contact at Hearth and Home magazine. "Contracts are in," she said, her voice sharp and professional. "The editors are thrilled. They're locking in your holiday feature, A Gilded Christmas. The photo and video crew will be there all week to document the setup." I hung up, exhaling a long, slow breath. My phone buzzed again, a frantic rhythm against the polished surface of my desk. 3 more texts from my mother. Asterisk, "What plans? You always host Christmas. Are you traveling somewhere? Elara, please answer." Asterisk, I silenced the phone and reached for my thick, spiral-bound planning notebook. Leo had once mocked it as my control freak's diary. Last year, its pages were filled with meal timelines, seating flowcharts, and lighting sequences for my family's benefit. This year, it held something far more important. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. I opened it to find my next-door neighbor, Mrs. Gable, her face etched with concern. She held a festive tin of cinnamon-dusted pecans. "Elara, honey, I just came from the market, but your mother was there," she began, her eyes searching mine. "Is it true? You're not hosting this year? The whole block is buzzing. People plan their holidays around your party lights." I smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile, and took the tin. "Don't worry, Mrs. Gable, the party is still on. It's just a little different this year." She tilted her head, puzzled but reassured by my calm. When I closed the door, another message had come through. This one was from Leo. Asterisk, "Mom says you're mad. Don't overreact. You know how intense your parties get. Chloe's family likes things simple. Asterisk, simple." There. Was that word again? I flipped to the centerpiece page in my notebook. Under a sketch of a grand cascading floral arrangement for the main hall, I had written "Holiday of Wonders, joy for 50 kids plus their moms." There were sketches for each room's theme: the sugar, plum forest, the North Pole bake shop, the Starlight Story room. No, simple was not in my vocabulary. And for the first time, I realized it never, ever needed to be. Let them have their quiet, simple Christmas with its polite, sterile conversation and lukewarm cider. I wasn't just planning a party. I was building a miracle. The next 2 weeks passed in a beautiful, chaotic blur of purpose. While my family sent a volley of vague, guilt-laced messages that I largely ignored, the Hearth and Home crew documented every magical moment. We didn't just decorate a house. We transformed a building of brick and mortar into a living dream. Every room pulsed with color, light, music, and scent. In the living room, I stood beneath the towering fir, now wrapped in shimmering glass bulbs and satin ribbons. "This," I said to the camera, gesturing to the hundreds of delicate paper ornaments dancing in the light, "is our wish tree." Every single ornament was handcrafted from a letter written by a child at the Northlight Collective, containing their deepest holiday wish. And tonight, every single one of those wishes has been granted. Behind me, snow machines spun soft, silent flurries in the grand entryway, and a group of children who had come for a preview squealed with pure, unadulterated delight. My family wanted calm. I had created Wonder. Then came the headline on the city's biggest news website, asterisk, "Local artisan Elara Vance transforms historic." Brownstone into Winter Wonderland for Children's Charity. The feature photo was of the massive glowing wish tree. My mother called within 5 minutes. Elara, what is this article? You doing this to spite us? I watched from my window as volunteers, neighbors I'd known for years, strung fairy lights across my front gate, their laughter fogging in the cold air. No, Mom, I said calmly. I'm doing this because while you are all chasing peace, 50 kids in this city have never known what a real holiday feels like. There was a stark silence on the line. Then her voice, smaller than I, had ever heard it, but what about family? I didn't miss a beat. Exactly, Mom. What about it? An hour later, a voicemail from my father, his usual gruff tone softened with an unfamiliar note of concern. Princess, your brother, says Chloe is upset. She thinks this whole party thing is about you stealing their spotlight. Can't you just come to their place for dinner? Keep it simple. But I wasn't the girl who kept it simple anymore. I was going over lighting cues with Maya when the front door opened and a gust of frigid air swept through the hall. It was Leo alone. He stood frozen in the foyer, his eyes wide, taking in the scene. The grand staircase was wrapped in shimmering gold garlands. The dining room was no longer set for 12, but for 100. A sea of glittering place settings. In the kitchen, the scent of baking gingerbread was overpowering as volunteers prepped for the cookie decorating stations. What is all this? He asked, his voice a quiet whisper of disbelief. I smiled. This, Leo, is what the holidays are supposed to feel like. Not just calm, but full of joy and love and purpose. His eyes drifted past me to the camera crew setting up a shot in the parlor. Is that Hearth and Home? It is, I said, my voice even. Turns out my intense parties were exactly what they were looking for. The feature goes live. On Christmas Eve, his face flushed a deep mottled pink. So this is about showing us up. I didn't argue. Instead, I handed him a thick folder. Inside were photos and handwritten letters from every child who would be celebrating here. No, Leo, I said gently. This is about giving them the kind of magic I used to try and create for us. Before it all became too much for everyone. He opened the folder and slowly began to turn the pages. His confident posture sagged, his expression softening with each child's story. You should go, I said, my voice kind but firm. You have a quiet dinner to plan, remember? Chloe's family is waiting. He didn't look up as he backed out the door, the folder clutched in his hand. The door clicked shut, leaving a profound silence in its wake. Maya gave my arm a soft squeeze. He looked absolutely floored. He's not the only one who will be, I said, a flicker of a new idea taking shape. Maybe some traditions were worth saving, after all just not in the way my family had ever expected. When Christmas Eve arrived, a blanket of fresh snow had turned the city into a hushed, glittering postcard. My brownstone glowed, a beacon of warmth and music, each window a tiny diorama of magic. The children began arriving in small, excited groups, their coats dusted with snowflakes, their eyes wide with an awe. That was the only gift I truly needed. Welcome to the Holiday of Wonders, I greeted them at the door. My heart so full it felt like it might burst. The rooms were alive with pure chaotic joy. There was a hot cocoa bar with a dozen toppings, storytelling corners with plush cushions, and craft stations where glitter was a primary food group. In the living room, the wish tree sparkled, a testament to answered prayers. Chloe's brother Liam, who had volunteered after hearing about the event from a mutual friend, helped me string the last of the lights in the garden. My sister talks a lot about quiet holidays, he said, his smile genuine. But this is what it's supposed to feel like. At 7 p.m., the Hearth and Home feature went live. I was too busy helping a little girl frost a lopsided gingerbread man to notice, but Maya kept me updated. The internet, she said, had exploded. Our little corner of the city was trending. At 8 p.m., the doorbell rang. Standing on the stoop, illuminated by the golden porch light, was Chloe. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her voice small and fragile. "I just saw the feature," she said, her breath fogging in the cold. "Elara, I am so sorry. We were wrong. We were so wrong." She stepped inside, her gaze sweeping over the scene, the laughter, the wonder, the palpable warmth. "All this time, they called you intense. But you're not. You're magical." Behind Chloe stood my parents. They looked stunned, their faces a mixture of shame and awe. My mother clutched a monogrammed handkerchief, her eyes glistening. My father, usually so stoic, just stared, his mouth slightly agape, at the sheer, overwhelming joy radiating from every corner of my home. "The way those children look at you," my mother whispered, her voice breaking. "It's how you used to look all those years ago when you planned Christmas for us." Before we started calling it too much, before I could answer, a small voice called out, "Miss Elara, come quick." It was Sophie, one of the youngest from the collective. "It's Sam." He found his wish ornament on the tree. I turned to my family, a gentle smile on my face. "Would you like to see what real holiday magic looks like?" They followed me. Inside, weaving through the twinkling lights and paper snowflakes. There, by the magnificent tree, stood 8-year-old Sam, a boy so quiet he barely spoke. He was clutching a star-shaped ornament, his small hands trembling. Attached to it was a small typewritten note. It read, "Asterisk, your new foster parents are here to meet you tonight." Asterisk, as a kind-faced couple stepped forward and knelt to his level, Sam ran straight into their arms. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. My mother gripped my hand, her knuckles white. "This," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "This is what you do. You don't just host parties. You make dreams come true." Across the room, I saw Chloe helping a group of kids with their cookies. My father was surrounded by a circle of enraptured children, his stiff demeanor replaced by a surprising softness as he told them a story. Later that evening, as the last of the hot chocolate was served, my mother found me in a quiet corner. "When we said we wanted peace this Christmas," she said, "we thought that meant quiet, but this." She gestured to the glowing rooms. "This is real peace. Watching love in action. That's all I ever wanted to create," I replied softly. "It was never about perfection. It was about making the magic real." As my family gathered their coats to leave, Chloe hugged me tightly. "Our quiet family dinner tomorrow feels a little empty now," she admitted with a sheepish smile. "Any chance your intense sister-in-law-to-be could host instead?" I laughed, pulling my now-famous planning notebook from its place on the hall table. "I might have already prepped for that possibility." My dad chuckled, a deep rumbling sound of relief. "Of course you did, Princess. You always think of everything." And so Christmas Day found my family right back where they started in the home they once called too much. But this time, there were no sideways glances or barbed compliments. There was only a profound sense of gratitude for the magic I had created, and for a new, shared understanding of what true peace really meant. As we sat down for dinner, my mother raised her glass. "To Elara," she said, her voice clear and strong, "who taught us all that peace isn't found in being simple, but in the boundless joy of creating magic for others." I looked around the table at the faces I loved, some new, some changed, all of them finally together again. "The best gifts," I mused, "often come wrapped in unexpected lessons. And the truest peace comes from finally, truly being seen."